The cab is humming. The headlights keep cutting a narrow tunnel through the dark. And somewhere around 2 in the morning, hunger starts to feel like a real problem, not just an inconvenience. Not the polite kind of hunger you can ignore until breakfast. The heavy kind. The kind that makes your hands clumsy at the wheel. The kind that makes the road feel longer than it should. And you see it. A truck stop sign glowing off the interstate. A bright island of light. Fuel. Showers. Parking. And a diner that is still open when the rest of the world is asleep. For American drivers, that diner was never just a place to eat. It was a reset button, a warm booth, a hot plate, a few minutes of feeling human again. And what many people forget is that truck stops had their own food culture. Not fancy food, working food, meals built for stamina, tight budgets, and long nights. Some of those plates are still around. Many have faded away, replaced by grab-and-go counters and plastic-wrap snacks. Tonight, we're going back to the old menus. 25 forgotten truck stop meals that fueled American drivers. Each one a small story, each one tied to the road. And one of them, believe it or not, was a dish so plain and so filling that it became a kind of quiet legend among working people. It was not glamorous. It was gravy on top of bread, but it kept drivers going. Stay with me. We'll get there. Truck stops grew alongside modern American highways. As long-haul trucking expanded, especially after the interstate system took shape, the road demanded its own kind of support network. Drivers needed fuel, repairs, safe parking, and food at every hour. Not just breakfast at 7 and dinner at 6. Food at midnight. Food at dawn. Food between deliveries when the schedule did not care if your stomach was empty. And for many drivers, money was always part of the calculation. Some were paid by the mile. Some had a stretch per diem. Some were supporting families back home and trying not to spend too much on the road. In that world, a good truck stop meal had to do 3 things. It had to be fast, it had to be filling, and it had to feel worth the stop. So let's step through the doors, hear the bell over the entrance, and start the place every working diner begins. The truck stop Blue Plate Special was not one single dish. It was the day's deal, priced for working people who needed a full plate without thinking too hard. One common variation was a meat portion, 2 sides, bread, and sometimes a cup of soup. People ate it because it was predictable and affordable, and it came out fast. It mattered during hard weeks because it gave you a full meal for a set price. The human detail is the chalkboard behind the counter, written in hurry, promising something hot no matter what kind of day you've had. From the Blue Plate, many drivers ordered the meal that never cared what time it was. The all-day breakfast platter was the truck stop's most dependable promise. Eggs any style, bacon or sausage, hash browns or home fries, and toast that arrived already buttered at the edges. People ate it because breakfast food was fast, filling, and familiar. It mattered when schedules were brutal because breakfast could be dinner at 9 p.m. or lunch at 4 a.m. The small detail is the coffee cup. Always close, always refilled, like the meal was built around that warm, steady bitterness. And if you wanted breakfast that felt heavier, the kind that stayed with you, there was a plate that truck stop cooks made with real pride. Corned beef hash and eggs was chopped corned beef mixed with potatoes and onions, pressed onto the flat top until crisp at the edges, then topped with eggs. People ate it because it turned simple ingredients into something rich and satisfying. It mattered in hard times because it used economical meat and filling potatoes, and it kept drivers full for hours. The human detail is the grill sound. That scrape of the spatula lifting the brown crust, because everyone knew the crust was the best part. From hash, the menu often slid into something even more filling because truck stop food understood one truth. Gravy makes anything feel like a real meal. Biscuits and sausage gravy was built from flour, fat, milk, black pepper, and a little sausage used for flavor. The biscuits were often big and soft, made to soak. People ate it because it was cheap, hot, and heavy in the best way. It mattered because it delivered calories that lasted through long miles. The human detail is the pepper shaker. Drivers seasoned without hesitation, adding a little more bite to a plate that already felt like armor. And what came next was even more unusual, because it was a dish built from the idea of making a little meat taste like a lot of supper. Cream chip beef on toast used thin dried beef warmed in a white sauce, then poured over toast. It was salty, simple, and fast. People ate it because dried beef kept well, and a small portion could flavor a whole plate. It mattered during lean stretches because it was affordable protein served in a filling form. The human detail is the toast disappearing under the sauce, turning crisp bread into something you eat with a fork slowly, like you're trying to make the warmth last. From white sauce, the menu often shifted to a plate that felt like a reward after a hard run. Chicken fried steak with white gravy was crisp, peppery, and unapologetically filling. A tenderized cut of beef, breaded and fried, then smothered in white gravy, often served with mashed potatoes and a vegetable. People ate it because it felt huge for the money and tasted like comfort. It mattered because a driver needed real fuel, not a snack. The human detail is the first cut. The crust cracks, steam rises, and gravy slides into the opening like it belongs there. If chicken fried steak was the reward, another plate was the steady worker's choice. Not fancy, not delicate, just dependable. Hamburger steak with onions and gravy was a seasoned ground beef patty seared on the grill, covered with onions cooked down sweet, and finished with brown gravy. It was often served with mashed potatoes or fries. People ate it because it was affordable and came out fast, and it still felt like a meat dinner. It mattered because ground beef could stretch farther than steaks. The human detail is the onion smell, sweet and deep, filling the diner and pulling tired people toward the counter. From hamburger steak, many drivers moved to a dinner that looked like home cooking on a plate, even if home was 1,000 miles away. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes was the comfort classic. Ground meat mixed with crumbs and seasoning, baked in advance, sliced thick, then served with gravy. People ate it because it was filling, familiar, and priced for working budgets. It mattered in hard times because meatloaf stretched meat and created leftovers for the diner, which kept prices steady. The human detail is the tomato glaze on top, shiny and dark, like a small attempt at making the meal feel special. And what many people forget is how often diners turned that same meatloaf into something even more truck stop perfect. The hot meatloaf sandwich was a fork and knife meal disguised as a sandwich. A slice of meatloaf on bread, covered in gravy, often served with mashed potatoes right on the plate. People ate it because it was filling and used leftovers without feeling like leftovers. It mattered because truck stop kitchens ran on efficiency and drivers ran on full stomachs. The human detail is the bread soaking through under the gravy, softening until the whole sandwich becomes one warm, heavy bite. For meatloaf, the menu often offered another open-faced classic that drivers ordered when they wanted the feeling of a Sunday dinner in the middle of the week. The hot roast beef sandwich was sliced roast beef on bread, covered in brown gravy, served with mashed potatoes. People ate it because it felt like carved meat without the cost or weight of a steak. It mattered because roast could be cooked in bulk, then served all day, keeping prices down. The human detail is the gravy ladle, moving in the same practice motion again and again, like the kitchen was keeping time. Right beside roast beef, another plate carried a slightly lighter comfort, but still with that same gravy warmth. The hot turkey sandwich was turkey slices on bread with gravy, often with stuffing on the side in some places. Sometimes it used leftover turkey from earlier in the week. Sometimes it was made specifically for the line. People ate it because it felt familiar and gentle. It still filled you up. It mattered during tight budgets because turkey could be served in controlled portions, stretched with bread and potatoes. The human detail is the stuffing scoop, a small mound that made the plate feel like a holiday, even at midnight. After all that gravy, many drivers wanted something that felt like it had been simmering all day because slow food has a different kind of comfort. Beef and noodles was tender beef in a thick gravy, served over egg noodles, sometimes with carrots or peas mixed in. It was simple, hearty, and easy to portion. People ate it because noodles were cheap and filling, and beef could be used in smaller amounts while still tasting rich. It mattered in hard times because it stretched meat and made a bowl feel complete. The human detail is the steam rising off the noodles, fogging the plate for a second, like the meal is asking you to slow down. From beef and noodles, another pot meal arrived that could calm a tired body in a way sandwiches never could. Chicken and dumplings was built for stretching. Chicken simmered in a broth, then dumplings dropped in to puff and thicken the pot. In some homes, it was made with a stewing hen. In truck stop kitchens, it was often made in big batches that could serve all day. People ate it because it was warm, filling, and felt homemade. It mattered because it used inexpensive ingredients and fed many. The human detail is the dumplings, soft and pale, floating like little pillows in the steam. And when the night was cold or the weather turned bad, drivers often reached for a bowl that felt like pure endurance. Beef stew with biscuits was a thick pot of beef, potatoes, carrots, and onions simmered until the meat softened and the broth turned rich. Biscuits came on the side to soak it up. People ate it because stew turned tougher cuts into tenderness and filled you fast. It mattered because one pot could feed many workers without expensive ingredients. The human detail is the biscuit split open, steam rising, then dragged through the bowl like it was a spoon. From stew, the menu often offered another pot that drivers loved because it hit harder, warmer, and faster. Chili and crackers was a truck stop staple, especially for night crowds. Meat, tomatoes, spices, and often beans to stretch it, served hot with crackers for crumbling. People ate it because it was filling, warming, and could be served quickly. It mattered in hard times because beans made the pot bigger and cheaper, and spice made simple ingredients taste bold. The human detail is the crackers, crushed by hand, dropped in, and watched as they softened, thickening the chili with every stir. After chili, some truck stops offered a regional plate that traveled far beyond its home territory because the road carried tastes across states. Red beans and rice showed up in many southern-leaning kitchens. Beans simmered with onion and seasoning, sometimes with sausage or ham when available, then served over rice to stretch the meal. People ate it because it was cheap, filling, and steady. It mattered because rice and beans together provided long-lasting fuel for hard work. The human detail is the sausage pieces, if they were there at all, found like little prizes in the bowl, reminding you the kitchen did not forget flavor. From beans and rice, the menu often returned to something that felt like a classic family dinner, especially for drivers who wanted a plate with a little sweetness and a lot of comfort. Pork chops with applesauce was a diner staple in many places. A pork chop grilled or pan-fried, served with a scoop of applesauce and a starch like mashed potatoes. People ate it because pork was often cheaper than beef, and it still felt like a proper meat dinner. It mattered during lean weeks because a chop could be sized reasonably and still satisfy. The human detail is that cold applesauce against hot meat, a simple contrast that made the meal feel like it was planned. And one of the most old-fashioned plates on the truck stop menu carried a very specific smell. Country ham with red-eye gravy was salty ham served with a thin, dark gravy made from drippings, often with coffee added in some versions. It came with eggs, grits, or biscuits depending on the region. People ate it because country ham kept well and delivered big flavor in a small portion. It mattered because a little ham could season a whole plate. The human detail is the first sip of coffee after a bite of ham because the salt demanded it and the ritual felt familiar. From ham, we moved to a dish that modern menus sometimes avoid, but truck stops served it because working bodies needed nutrition, not trends. Liver and onions was pan-fried liver with onions cooked down sweet, often served with mashed potatoes and gravy. People ate it because liver was affordable and nutrient-dense, and it gave you a serious protein meal for less than a steak. It mattered in hard times because it delivered iron and energy when diets were limited. The human detail is the onions. Soft, browned, and sweet, they did the quiet work of making a tough dish feel comforting. After liver, some drivers wanted something simpler, faster, and almost stubbornly working class. The fried bologna sandwich was bologna seared on the grill until the edges curled, served on bread with mustard, sometimes with onions. People ate it because it was cheap, hot, and quick, and it tasted better off a flat top than it ever did cold. It mattered because it put a meat sandwich in your hands without draining your wallet. The human detail is the curled bologna on the grill, forming a little cup as it cooks, while the cook presses it down without looking. From bologna, the menu often shifted to the grilled sandwiches that kept drivers moving on tight schedules. The patty melt was a burger patty with melted cheese and grilled onions, served on toasted bread instead of a bun. It was warm, heavy, and built for hunger. People ate it because it was filling and felt like a full meal even before the fries arrived. It mattered because it was affordable and quick, with ingredients every diner kept on hand. The human detail is the wax paper wrap, peeled back as steam escapes, making the sandwich smell like butter and onions. If the patty melt was beef comfort, another melt offered a different kind of thrift. The tuna melt used canned tuna, mixed with mayonnaise, and sometimes chopped celery or onion, topped with cheese and grilled until bubbling. People ate it because canned tuna was cheap protein and always available, and the cheese made it feel rich. It mattered in hard times because it offered a filling sandwich without requiring fresh meat. The human detail is the first bite when the tuna is hot and the cheese stretches slightly, and you realize it is more satisfying than it sounds. And when money was tight or the stomach was uneasy, there was a meal that always felt safe. Grilled cheese and tomato soup was warm, simple, and dependable. Bread grilled in butter or margarine with a slice of cheese, paired with tomato soup from a pot that stayed ready. People ate it because it was inexpensive, fast, and comforting. It mattered because it offered a full meal without meat, and it calmed you down on a rough day. The human detail is the soup spoon tapping the bowl and the grilled cheese cut cleanly, like the kitchen still cared about small comforts. From there, some truck stops offered a plate that felt like the definition of filling, even if it was not glamorous. Macaroni and cheese with stewed tomatoes was a comfort combination that showed up on older menus. Creamy macaroni and cheese, served with a scoop of tomatoes on top or on the side, adding a bright, tangy bite to cut through the richness. People ate it because pasta and dairy were affordable and tomatoes added flavor without much cost. It mattered because it provided a meatless dinner that still satisfied. The human detail is the red stain on the cheese, a simple splash of color that made the plate feel alive. Now, not every truck stop meal was gravy and potatoes. Some were fried, crisp, and tied to certain stretches of road. The catfish platter with hush puppies was a staple in many southern truck stops. Catfish fried in cornmeal, served with hush puppies, slaw, and lemon when available. People ate it because catfish was affordable in many regions and frying made it satisfying. It mattered because it offered protein without the cost of beef, and it broke up the monotony of diner food. The human detail is the hush puppies, hot and round, split open with steam rising, eaten before the fish even cools. And finally, we end with a meal that was not always listed under dinner, but might have mattered as much as any plate on the menu. A slice of pie and bottomless coffee was the late-night ritual. Apple, cherry, chocolate, pecan, whatever the diner baked or bought, served under the soft light of a pie case. People ate it because sometimes you did not need another heavy plate. You needed warmth, sugar, and a reason to sit still. It mattered in hard times because the cheapest comfort on the road could keep you awake and steady. The human detail is the fork scraping the plate, slow and quiet, while the coffee cup gets topped off again. By the time you step back from these 25 truck stop meals, you can see what they really were. They were not just food. They were infrastructure for working life. They were built for drivers who ran on tight schedules, tight budgets, and long hours. They were built to be hot, filling, and familiar, even when everything else felt uncertain. And what many people forget is that a truck stop diner was also a kind of shelter. A place with light when the highway felt endless. A place with heat when the weather turned mean. A place where you could sit down, eat something solid, and remember you were more than a moving dot on a route map. So if some of these meals sound plain, that is because plain food is often the food that saves you. A plate of gravy and potatoes. A bowl of chili. A sandwich that comes out hot and heavy. A slice of pie at the right moment. On the road, those meals did not just fill a stomach. They carried a driver through the next stretch of dark highway. 1 mile at a time. 1 cup of coffee at a time. One forgotten truck stop plate that, for a few quiet minutes, made the whole country feel a little less lonely. Truck stops originated from the Pony Express in the 1860s and evolved alongside the trucking industry after World War II. The establishment of the interstate highway system in the 1950s fueled the growth of truck stops, enhancing their facilities and services.